I'm president of the Charles River Chamber, and I'm delighted to welcome you today to our conversation with the three candidates who are running for Select Board in Needham on April 9th, right? I got that date right. And the other three candidates, two of them will prevail and get seats on the board, and one will not. So that's just to give you an idea where we are. The goal here in this event today is to really have a conversation about economic development issues and issues that matter to the business community. We may touch on some general issues that are important, but really we're going to focus on that. As the candidates know, and I've explained to them, we will focus, we will not use a timer. I reserve the right to interrupt people, mostly just to keep the conversation moving if I think somebody's talking for a little too long, but we're going to try to make this as much a conversation. And I've already encouraged the candidates to talk to each other as much as they talk to me during the course of this event. We will, at the end of the event, have a 90-second closing comments from each of the candidates, but we're generally going to make this just a timerless event. I did want to thank Grassi, our sponsor, for this event, and thank all of you for participating. So thank you very much for that. I think I told you, so as I mentioned to you, I would like to begin with a question that I already warned the candidates or told the candidates I would ask them in the beginning just to warm it up. The question I asked was, if you could invite one person, they could be deceased, they could be still living, over for dinner, who would you invite for you to be your dinner guest? And then I also want to know what you would serve them. So I'm going to start the way I see the candidates on my screen with Kevin Keane to tell us, Kevin, who would you like to invite over for dinner and what would they get to eat?
Okay, this is a fun question. Thanks for asking it.
Yep.
Actually, the more I thought about it, the more people I thought I'd like to have. So I thought maybe we have a dinner party, but I will follow the rule.
One person.
One person. Okay.
Yep.
And this is slightly self-serving. Let me explain. But I have Nehoyden. He is a central figure or early figure in Needham history. And I'm working on the Steel and Branding Committee. And we are looking to also, he's on the seal now. We want to include him. But honestly, there's no record of what he looks like. So I really want to see what he looks like. Also want to ask him, at a point where two societies, two cultures were falling apart, and he had a foot in both of them, what was his perspective? What do you think happened? How does he think that people just forgot that they want to try to work together to live in peace? And I'd really like to hear those insights. And on the menu, my family has a tradition on Friday nights we make your own pizza. And we have scientifically fixed a recipe. Every week we change one component of it, and we make the dough on Thursday nights. The sauce is raw going on. We now use fresh mozzarella only. And every week we cut back basil, and it tastes awesome, by the way. I think we make a great pizza. So, all right. So I guess let's come over on a Friday night.
Very good. Chamber Burgos, welcome. Nice to see you. Tell us who you would like to invite over for dinner and what would you serve?
Hi, Greg. Thank you so much for having me. And I see some friends out there, so thank you all for joining us. I lost my father 4 weeks ago, so I would invite him. He was a really good friend of mine, one of the best people I have ever known. I grew up in Wisconsin, so we would have a classic Midwestern steak dinner with a bottle of red wine. And I would ask him for advice on the campaign. He was a very charitable man and was involved with a lot of community work. So I think he'd be pretty proud of me right now.
Very good. Well, thank you. And sorry to hear of your loss.
Thanks.
And finally, let's welcome Josh Levy to the conversation. Josh, who would you like to have over for dinner and what would you serve him?
Thanks, Greg. Tina, I'm sorry for your loss. I was also thinking along the same lines about family, and this forum is about business. And my grandfather was like a really big mentor for me. He grew up in the Depression, was a first-generation American, and after serving in the Korean War, he became a lawyer, and he was a sole practitioner. He worked for himself. and he served his community in Lowell. He, helped people who couldn't, didn't have the means to really live, so they, wouldn't lose their houses, and they wouldn't, they could afford to go to the hospital and get, treated for medical conditions. He helped people in the community. He served on the as the president of the Lowell Bar Association, and so he's someone I looked up to, and he had the most impeccable ethics. He was, straight as an arrow, and he's someone I really looked up to. I would have to go out to a Chinese buffet. That was his favorite. He would just eat and eat and eat, go up for seconds and thirds and fourths. And, I remember even one time I would, at a buffet, I would see something on his plate, can I have some? He's like, get your own. He's just very protective. But he was a fantastic person.
Great, thank you. Great answers from the three of you. Thank you very much. All right, so now let's get down to business. Kevin is the incumbent here running for re-election, second term, right, Kevin? And there is a seat that we know at least one additional person will be added to the board because Marcus Nelson has opted not to run. When Marcus announced that he wasn't going to run, he said part of his thinking was he wasn't sure he could afford to live in Needham, which is a pretty big indictment of the town and the housing crisis that we face here. I'd love to know what you all think of that and what that says about Needham and what we need to do there. And we'll get into talking a little about the MBTA communities and everything, but just in general, and maybe I'll start with you, Josh, this time. Marcus leading for that, saying that is one of the reasons. How did you respond to that when you first heard it?
It rang true. My own house is a starter home. Some people call it. It's a small house. It's a 1950s ranch, and they're just really rare in town now. I would not have been able to move to Needham either if it hadn't been available. I really think that our diversity of housing has been reduced in recent years. Starter homes are being knocked down and they're being replaced by large homes, but those small homes just aren't being replaced. They're not being added. I think that's a problem, and I think it does keep people out of town. It's exclusionary. So when Marcus said that, I completely understood where he was coming from. I want to be able to make Needham more inclusionary. I want there to be a broader array and variety of housing options for people. So that's small homes, large homes, single family, multifamily, just rental, condo ownership, everything in between. I think the variety is what brings diversity of people. I think a diversity of housing and a diversity of the people who live in those houses is what makes Needham fantastic. And I don't want to lose the diversity of the people. I think it's so important.
Great. And Tina, your thoughts about that when you heard that Marcus says that's why he's not jumping out and creating an opportunity for you, but what did you think?
It's terrible. The housing situation in Needham, as in many other communities across the state and the country, is very troubling. But we need more affordable housing. We do, however, need to, when we're talking about affordable housing, take into account all different sort of classifications of affordable housing, affordable versus subsidized, young starter families, seniors who are downsizing, the invisible middle class, so moderate income folks who are working in our town, committing themselves to making Needham a better place, but cannot afford to live there. It's a really complicated issue, and we cannot benefit one class, at the detriment of another. So as with Josh, I would not be able to afford the home that I'm in right now. I'm renovating because it's in need of major repairs, a 100-year-old very small colonial, and I couldn't find a rental to afford while the renovation's happening. So I'm living about 20 minutes west, which has been a little bit disruptive for me and the kids and my husband. But we need to tackle this issue. And, I think the conversations are starting to happen. And how does that look? I don't know how that's going to play out.
Okay. And Kevin, for your colleague to say that one of the reasons he can't continue to serve is because he couldn't live here, what does that say about our ability to have representative government?
It's a great point. I'm sorry Marcus is leaving. He was a good colleague. He's a great voice on the select board. I think the issue is in Needham, there's no market affordability. That's what's kind of going on. Needham did solve its housing problem. Back in the 40s and 50s, we were essentially a New England Levittown. We built houses like the one I live in now and the one Josh, I think, lives in, And we solved when we had affordable, there was market affordable housing. Now that resource is getting eaten up by, God bless them, some very creative developers who can take something, buy only the land, that's all that has value, flip it and build a now $2.5 to $3 million home. I think we're really changing the society we have in town. And I think it's a detriment to people who, young families who want to move into town. Needham also has a problem with, I think, the mix of housing they have. Like there are not many apartment units in town. And Needham, as a quiet suburb, isn't really a place that might attract that much development. But I think we will definitely be getting more apartment units. But I really wish we could do something about the knockdowns. I appreciate them. There is no model to build small houses anymore. It doesn't seem, I don't think any builder will build a small house again.
So sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Can I respond to that?
Yeah.
So I think we can be creative. I think there is a way to build small houses again, and it has to be to look at the lot sizes. So right now, the minimum lot size is 10,000 square feet. There are many houses, though, on smaller lots that predate that zoning. I think if we look at maybe oversized lots that exist today between 10 and 20,000 square feet, we have to decide on exactly what the number is. But if we allow those to be subdivided and have basically with the FAR restrictions, allow 2 small houses to be built where only 1 large house could be built, I think that would be beneficial for everyone, actually, for the developer who could earn more on 2 small houses in aggregate compared to 1 large house, for the town that could have more tax revenue associated with those 2 small houses compared to 1 large house. And then also for individuals looking to move into town, there are now more housing options. There's more housing, and it's likely to be at a lower price point because a smaller house is likely to be less expensive than a larger one.
Tina?
I'd love to think that's true. I hope it is, but I'm thinking ultimately that is going to be a high value house that is going to be, filled with them, which I understand, but I don't think any builder is going to be building a really small house. I mean, if they build a smaller house by an FAR or something like that, understood, but they're not going to be pitching it to a market that is basically going to be for a starter house.
Yeah, I mean, the return on investment doesn't make any sense. I think, I'm not a fan of teardowns. I agree with Kevin. But again, we're talking about sort of benefiting one and potentially creating disadvantage for another. So you think about seniors who these developers are coming, they've been living in their homes for 30, 40, 50 years. A developer comes along, cash in hand, maybe no contingencies, they're offering 20, 30, 40, $50,000 over asking so that they can take that house and tear it down. How do you tell a senior that needs that money either for a downsize or really costly medical expenses, which I'm going through right now with my mom, or just basic living, right? Food. How do you tell that person that, we're restricting teardowns, and it doesn't necessarily, it's not going to benefit them. We have to figure out a way to solve this. As I said, it's a very complex issue, and I think if the answer was there, we wouldn't be having this conversation. But all of these different categories of housing need to be taken into account when we have these conversations.
So let me
Sorry.
Josh, I'll come back to give you a chance to let's talk about the MBTA communities, and in particular, there's a really big, important meeting tomorrow night when the Hone Committee will present its scenarios for complying with the state law, which unlocks opportunities for more housing. It doesn't create more opportunities, but unlocks opportunities. Now, Kevin and Josh, you're both on that committee and Hone Committee, so I'm going to go to Tina first on this. Tina, have you had a chance to look at what Hone is recommending? How do you feel about it? Did they go too far? Did they do the right thing? Help us understand what you think.
I have looked at it. I do not have the expertise that Josh and Kevin have because they're on the committee. And I appreciate all of the work that's been done to it. So tomorrow the committee will be presenting 2 options, the base plan and the neighborhood housing plan. I am strongly in favor of the neighborhood housing plan, which is sort of the bonus plan to the minimum that needs to be done. I mean, we're talking about creating opportunity. So let's create opportunity, right? It is a chance for us to build multifamily homes around rail stations. It's going to, one of my priorities, it's going to create density, which will hopefully benefit the small business community in our commercial sectors. There are environmental impacts there. You're encouraging people to use public transportation instead of automobiles, and it will help hopefully, bring some vibrancy to our town. So I believe that we should move forward with the neighborhood housing plan.
And just to clarify for the audience that hasn't followed this yet, so the base plan essentially follows what the state is requiring, the minimum number of allowable units. The neighborhood housing plan does more than that, mostly with some additional density and height. And Kevin and Josh, maybe quickly, you could just start telling me, do you also support and will you be encouraging town meeting to ultimately support the neighborhood plan?
I'm sorry, who do you want to go first?
Go ahead, Kevin.
All right, I'm going first. I support the base plan. We have to do it, and we are required to. I also support the neighborhood plan. I think that's a better option. Neither is a stretch beyond what Needham has kind of already wanted to zone, except it's all, has to go through planning board. This is now by right. And yes, for all the reasons that have been described, it'll be a more vibrant street scene, is environmentally fine. My take on Hone or on MBTA, Hone is a committee that's studying, all right? But MBTA is that it works really well for Needham. It's right on our, Highland Ave and Chestnut along a commuter rail. So it's a win for the town. The benefit the neighborhood proposal is that it allows, it's more, how do we say, likely to be built. So there's actually a scoring mechanism of propensity to be built. And you can allow zoning that will allow things to be built. But quite frankly, the economics of it aren't really favorable to a developer. If in the neighborhood plan, we've increased some height restrictions, and I think it's a more attractive project for a builder. So in the neighborhood is sort of the one that could be built, and not in everywhere. Not every zoned area is as attractive.
Right.
Chestnut Street actually would be attractive.
Right. Kevin, pardon me for interrupting you here, but and I guess part of that question is, maybe we'll go to Josh next. So when you chose the areas that you were going to allow to be redeveloped, you did not include Great Plain Avenue, which arguably has a lot of single-story buildings, which it would make sense to have residents above the retail and have more density there for the valley. Josh, maybe you want to just tell me, were you comfortable with that decision? Why is it that we didn't want to build on Great Plain Avenue or allow building on Great Plain Avenue?
So as part of Hone, I've been pushing really hard for mixed use. And I think that mixed use is a really reliable way, mixed use meaning commercial on the first floor, residences above. Mm-hmm. I think it's a really reliable way to build economic development. I think Tina and Kevin have both said that when you have residences in close proximity with businesses, you're going to generate foot traffic. When people can go just walk to their corner store or walk to a shop, they're going to do that more regularly than if they have to get into a car and make a trip out of it. The law is restrictive. The MBTA communities law is restrictive in certain ways. It does not allow us to require mixed use. So in that downtown area, we would have had to allow for residences only. So situations where it was, from the ground up, all residences, and there was a chance that we would lose businesses in that downtown area. And that was the thinking behind excluding that area in that central downtown.
So you're right in that we might lose the businesses because it would be developed, but you could require first floor retail and housing above it as an option under the state law, the state guidelines.
The state law doesn't allow you to require first floor commercial. You can incentivize it, you can allow it as an option, but you can't require it.
Josh is right on that. If basically you cannot require mixed use. If you do, it cannot be included in the numbers. So you do it to the exclusion. So it's a strange mix. I agree.
So there.
I don't want to debate that one with you, although I'm not sure I'm agreeing with you. But let's talk about. A moment ago we talked about teardowns, and we talked about that. And basically, both of the Hone proposals don't go into the residential neighborhoods. They basically are taking commercial areas and allowing for housing. Why not have also taken the extra step of saying that instead of having a large monster house, you could have built a multifamily house in a residential neighborhood. You could have done that under this effort, but you generally didn't.
Right.
And Josh, I'll let you go first, and then Tina, I'd love to know what you think about that idea.
Thank you. So I don't think I got to finish the last answer, but I'll blend into this. So you're right that the current areas that are being considered for rezoning are all existing business districts or existing apartment districts. There are no single family districts. So I'm supporting I shouldn't say I'm supporting because the process is not finished. Like, we're still listening to people, and there's a meeting tomorrow night, and we're integrating feedback. I'm leaning towards the base compliance scenario because I am, in part, I'm worried that because we focus so much on the business areas, there's a chance that we would displace some businesses and just have residences. There's a delicate balance between businesses and residences. They feed each other. They're symbiotic on each other. And so I really want to be able to make sure that we understand how it plays out a little bit before we expand it further. Your second question about residences, I did make a motion. I wanted to have us consider the Hersey area. So we have 4 train stations in town, and the committee decided, I think it was 6-2, against putting any of that zoning around the Hersey area. And the main reason is because it's largely residential, and it would basically, what we had done is we had identified about a 5-acre area of mainly residences with some commercial areas. And my feeling was, let's at least examine it. Let's see it as a possibility. Let's model it. But the committee ultimately decided that that wasn't a direction to go in.
So, but just to make everything clear, so Josh, if I heard it right, you support the base plan only, but Tina and Kevin, you both support both questions. Did I get that right?
The base is where I'm leaning right now. Yes.
Right. So you're recommending, or you're feeling right now is but the two of you agree with. Tina, what do you think about the idea that neither plan or the plan does not include taking any residential neighborhoods and allowing multifamily housing where single family homes exist now?
I'm open to multifamily housing in single family residences. I mean, areas. You know, this whole thing, I think, change is really hard for people. And the state is providing a framework for this act, but Needham still gets to decide. We decide what's best for us. You know, how our town wants to look, the character of our town. And there's change. So I feel like the zoning we have to be flexible on that in order to accommodate the way that our town is changing with regards to an increase in population, you know, a housing that is not affordable for so many of us. So I think, you know, it has to be a collaborative conversation between select board, zoning board, the community, the neighborhoods, and to make sure that it's right for everybody. But I'm not opposed to multifamily housing in single family neighborhoods.
Okay. Kevin, I'm going to give you the last chance to just say one last thing about this, and then I want to move on to other topics.
Sure. You know, on the 2 maps, we meet our requirements easily without having to go into any other residential districts. And it was decided that would be left to the planning board. If they want to expand it further, that would be a good avenue. But, you know, I think we met a goal. We have a very ambitious goal. And I think that it works. We meet, I think we have something that we can pass through town meeting. And that ultimately is the highest hurdle we have to get through.
Right, it's about zoning. It's not like, as Kevin was saying, there's what's the propensity that this is actually going to happen, and what is the time horizon is, you know, it could be up to 25-30 years. So let's put the plan in place and let's see what happens, but we have to start somewhere.
Okay, let's move on. I'm sure you all know that the select board has heard some proposals from some folks about redesigning, rethinking Great Plain Avenue. The goal essentially to make it more walkable, more usable, perhaps allow more outdoor dining, cycling. I'd love to know your thoughts about that and where you think that plan should go. And I'll start first saying, does anybody object to the idea that maybe Great Plain Avenue would only be 1 lane in one each direction as opposed to 2 lanes now? Anybody think that's a problem? Okay, does anybody think it would be a problem to lose parking as part of the process to expand and make Great Plain wider or narrower as part of, or more usable in other ways? So you're
I'm a
both,
little lukewarm on that,
yeah,
just because I had a business on Great Plain Avenue that didn't work. So parking was was definitely an issue for us.
Josh and Kevin, are you not worried about that, either one of those ideas? Or?
Can I expand a little bit? So the network, the transportation networks can't be looked at so narrowly. Just the intersections like Great Plain and Highland, or Great Plain and Dedham.
Mhm.
The transportation networks, people travel through that area. But they're either going to travel through downtown or they're going to around downtown if they're driving. For walking and biking, it's really important for people to be able to get downtown too. So it's not just about developing the downtown streetscape to make people be able to walk and bike there in that location, but people need to be able to get to downtown easily. The downtowns need to be a place where people can view as a destination. People want to go and spend time in those places. The downtown streetscape is just one, I think, component of trying to revitalize downtown. It can't be viewed as an entire solution to all of business in downtown.
Kevin, you want to weigh in on this?
There's a couple of things. One is the town commissioned this parking study just recently, and they concluded that, believe it or not, Needham has like the equivalent of 2 extra parking garages worth of parking space. And that upended a huge assumption in Needham. It was always, you cannot take your space away from anywhere. It showed that we have a little bit of wiggle room, and we just have to do either a combination of wayfinding or to make it seem more logical. But overall, our parking problem isn't the nightmare we were fearing it to be. It's also interesting that parking is most likely used after 6 p.m. That was a parking study. The Great Plain Ave redesign, I'm really excited about it. I think this is great because downtown Needham was redesigned or designed in the 1940s and 50s as a car-centric world. And if you look around Needham, a little bit depressed, it doesn't work, obviously. The businesses are suffering. Redesigning it to make it more pedestrian friendly, keeps a more vibrant streetscape. More pedestrians are more shoppers. A village feel is going to be safer, more interesting and fun. So I think it's a win. All the engineers who looked at it said that they would like to look at they're dying to look at Chestnut Street, Chapel, Great Plain Ave, Dedham, the whole end Highland Ave. Unfortunately, we're keeping it's targeted because, well, we have to fund it. But yes, the idea is it would be great to have a larger view. One nugget we did get from one of the engineers was by making Great Plain Ave, reducing the right of way. So it'd be a parking lane and a right of way, and taking out the third one and making that sidewalk or bike lane, some combination. He said, looking at some of the studies of transportation we have on Needham, he said there would not be a lot of workaround. It's not like other neighborhood streets would take the burden. So he thought, you got to do this. People go into on Great Plain, they go into Needham Center on one lane, they come out of it on one lane, they can stay on it in one lane.
So Kevin, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I want to go back to what Tina said. So yes, there was a study that showed that there was indeed a lot of parking available in Needham that gets unused all the time. Tina, you said as a business owner, you didn't necessarily believe that to be true, and help us understand that.
So think about when you are going somewhere, for the most part, when you're driving to the grocery store or Target, or people, for the most part, they try to park as close as they possibly can to their destination. So I understand there's a lot of parking. I think the signage needs to be worked on, which we tried to resolve years ago with the Council of Economic Advisors. But there's also, it may exist, but you also have to think about the mentality of the consumer. And, how is that going to affect them? I mean, I had clients coming in from Providence, Cambridge, Boston, surrounding communities. And sometimes that they would leave because they could not find a spot that was in close proximity to the shop. That's just, I think a lot of people think that way. So we have to keep those types of things in mind when we're thinking about these studies, because ultimately, these plans sound great, and I completely support the reimagining Great Plain Avenue. I think it's fantastic. But sort of digging down and, talking to business owners to see what are some of the details that we may be overlooking. And I think parking is one of them.
Let me follow up with you, Tina, and then we'll come to Josh. So you're sitting, happen to know that we know that you're sitting in your store in Newton Highlands that used to be located in Great Plain Ave in Needham, and you moved your business to Newton. I'd love to understand why you did that, what was important was, and also it's not just you though, because we know that Simply Stated moved to Wellesley, and Poncho's closed their Needham place but kept their Dedham store. We just learned that Antonio, who owned Latinas, is going to open in West Newton. So we are seeing maybe signs, or at least some evidence of that Needham doesn't always work for businesses. Love to understand, Tina, what you did, and then Josh, love to hear what you think about it.
I think one of our biggest issues was foot traffic. Great Plain Avenue is a thoroughfare. I see people parked down at by the post office to do what they need to do. They'll jump in their cars, and they'll drive, a couple of blocks down to Greensfield if they want to spend some outdoor time down there. It's very car centric, so it's not built for that type of village feel, as Kevin was saying. But also, the businesses have been suffering, particularly after COVID. We tried, we tried to try to keep businesses not only surviving, but thriving. And as a small business owner, if businesses are shutting down around you, that's a major opportunity loss, because we need each other. We support, we rely on each other for referral traffic. That sort of density within the business community is vital. You don't want to be the only person on an island. So with a lot of the shops and restaurants closing, particularly after the COVID pandemic, it didn't make sense for me to stay there. And quite frankly, it's cheaper to do business for me in Needham because rent is cheaper. It might be only $3 to $5 per square foot versus Newton, but I was not getting the traffic. Here in Newton Highlands, the neighborhood is very supportive. I see folks, almost weekly, the same folks almost weekly, because they're walking around, they're taking advantage of the other businesses on the street, on this little block. Everything is much more condensed, and it's just a much better fit for what I do.
And yet parking is not easy in Newton Highlands, right? But Josh, we're going to go.
Well, there's a big lot right next door, and they do have, I feel like it's a little bit easier here.
So Josh, what would you do if you were on the board to help to stop businesses from leaving Needham and encourage new businesses to come here?
Well, so I think Tina describes the behavior well of people. They go to one place. You go downtown to go to the pharmacy, or to go to the bank, or to go to the restaurant. But the mentality, I'm hoping that the select board can help to make Needham Center and also Needham Heights destinations. We can host community events on either of the commons, like concerts or community gathering places, so that people can come. The goal, I think, is for people, like Tina said, to be able to walk around, to spend the afternoon, in downtown, popping in and out of shops. If that can happen, if people can think of Needham Center the same way they think of like Legacy Place, they're very different types of cater. They're different businesses, but you go to Legacy Place to do a lot of shopping, to do spend time.
So Josh, you're talking about what you want people to think. I want to know what the board can do to help create
exactly. So the board can open up the town common, also the Heights common, for concerts, to invite people for an afternoon or an evening, and then during that time they can go in and out of shops. They can see what the town has to offer. It can get people to start thinking of downtown as a place that they want to spend time being there. I think what the select board can also do is the select board can really engage with business owners outside of Needham and ask, what would it take for you to come to Needham? I'm kind of curious to ask Tina, what would it take for you to bring your business back to Needham?
We need to develop more business, but in order for that to happen, a lot of other things need to take place, right? So
And so Josh, just to follow up there, if you were on the board, you would support finding town money to do programming for the common, because the town traditionally doesn't provide funds to do entertainment programming. They look to other people to do that.
We have the Council of Arts and Culture. The town has been increasing that money. Right now, the town has been allocating about $9,000 per year in the budget, and we're increasing that another $10,000 this year, or this coming year. So we are investing in the arts, and I'm really happy to do that. The arts is a great way to bring people and get them to gather in the downtown. I think the select board can really be proactive on that front.
Kevin, what ideas do you have to help downtown bring more vitality, more businesses there?
You know, what government does is it sets the table. All right, we're gonna redesign, I'd like to redesign the downtown, reduce traffic speed. I'd like to increase pedestrian safety, make it fun and enjoyable. One consultant made a good point, and they said, you need public art, and don't make it an add-on. It has to be real and has to be central to something. It's like, okay, I take the point. I'm not making the art though, but that's an opportunity. We have an economic, we get someone who does, JP, who does the economic development for the town, and he reaches out to a lot of communities and tries to attract businesses. But ultimately, that's one thing. But I think with the redevelopment of the downtown, to make it work for pedestrians, well, as one consultant said, yeah, as the guarantee, that's what brings in the clients and fills the and reduces vacancies. Said there was a Concord, New Hampshire. There was a depressed downtown area, a lot of vacant storefronts. You'd redesign it and make it inviting for pedestrians and for people to go outside and outdoor dining and whatnot. And landlords find tenants, and that's how it works. So I think, and that now, you know, I think in Concord, New Hampshire, the vacancy rate is like 10%. They said the place is packed, it's great, and that's a win. And I think that's how government gets it to be a win.
So Kevin, I've heard you talk about some other communities and what they're doing and everything. I'd still like to know more specifically what the select board could do.
Oh, what the select board could do?
Yep.
To do for the downtown. I would say we're doing the redesign of Great Plain Avenue. Mm-hmm. We're going to have a process. We're going to bring a lot of people in and get feedback. The limit will be our imagination of how we want the downtown to effectively work so that it is good for pedestrians, it's good for shoppers, and it'll be good for tenants. So I think that's the way we do this.
Yeah, I think we all agree that we want to do, that it would be great to rethink and reimagine Great Plain Ave. At best, that's a 5 or 10 year project. Business owners.
I'm gonna wait a little pushback on that. Not quite.
Okay.
Karis Leslie was talking at DPW, so she's eager to go. We could get a consultant in. She's thinking probably end of 26, we could start with some building.
Okay. So it's not
10 years away.
It's several years away for a business who's got to figure out how to get through this year.
Sure.
And I appreciate we need to think about the long term, but I'm also wondering if any of you have any ideas besides Josh's to program the common more or town green more. What other ideas are there to help businesses today get through to the point when we have a nice reimagined Great Plain? Tina?
So I think there are a few things that we can do on short money. I think that we need, it's been a while since I've attended a meeting because I'm no longer on the Council of Economic Advisors. We should have a steady liaison between the select board and that council so that the select board is sort of always informed about what's happening with the small business community. If, you know, it shows the small business community that they're valued and that their opinions and their thoughts and their concerns matter. There are also things I think we can do in the permitting process. I had a very difficult time getting a sign. It's a black and white sign. I had to go to the design review board twice to get my sign approved. Little things like that, especially for somebody that's starting out or is new to the community, make some of this permitting these processes a little bit easier. Use the Economic Development Office. There are hundreds of local, state, and federal grants available. And it would be great if that office could sort of help aggregate that information. Rockland Trust down the street from us, they do a small business contest every year where they give out $20,000. It's annually. Mass Growth Capital Corporation, who really helped out quite a bit during COVID with disseminating information and providing information about microloans, other types of loans and grants. You know, where is this information coming from? The SBA is a great resource. So I think that, you know, again, for short money, we could have a resource in town that could help funnel that information to our small business owners. And then I think the select board should collaborate with the planning board to figure out some of these density issues. I mean, I know we're working on MBTA Communities Act, but what are some other things that we need to be thinking about so that the business community will benefit from increased density? It's a multifaceted approach, but sort of quick and easy. Those are the types of things I think we could easily do as we're looking at longer term plans, such as the Great Plain reimagination.
Right. And the other thing I would add is we could also learn from the wisdom of the Charles River Chamber of Commerce and see what, you know, what ideas you guys have. That'd be great.
Always full of ideas. Josh, any last comments?
I think just in general, like Tina said, sometimes people don't know when people come to town and create a business, they may not know all of the hoops that we ask them to jump through. And sometimes we do ask a lot. I think we can be better at just explaining, you know, the processes. If it's going to the design review board, what is the process? And it's not meant to be overwhelming. It's not meant to be a barrier to business. It's really, it's meant to make sure that everyone follows the same rules. That's really all it is. And when we put rules in place, it's not meant to be obstructionist at all. And that's absolutely not what I want to do. I think any rules that we do put in place should never have that intention. We want to make it easy for businesses to do their business and fair for every business at the same time.
I want to move on. It's still related to supporting small businesses, though. As I'm sure you all know, at town meeting this spring, there is a citizens petition that would regulate some plastic materials. It would ban styrofoam and coffee stirrers and some other things. And the other things include plastic water bottles. Plastic water bottles, I think we can all agree, and everybody I know agrees, that they're not good for the environment. They create a litter problem. They're bad for our health. There are lots of problems. On the other hand, our restaurants, particularly our fast serve restaurants, who continue to struggle and get back on their feet since COVID, will tell you that those bottles are really important to their ability to function and to offer competitive menu items and everything else. The markup is significant on a water bottle. It is something that really can make really literally hundreds of thousands of dollars difference for a pizza shop, a sandwich shop, or whatever over the course of the year. Tell me, each of you, how you feel about whether or not Needham should ban water bottles, whether town meeting should vote to support banning the water bottles at town meeting. And I'll start with you, Kevin.
Actually, they came in last night to talk about it.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. I think I'm with them on straws and other straws, not coffee cups, but the
Flashcard.
Thank you very much. The single-use cutlery, stuff like that. I'm with them on that. I think I'm sympathetic to it. I'm with them on the small, like, light bulb bottle. I think those are absurd. That goes for like whatever, like 2 ounces, 3 ounces. But they want to take it from the 1 liter bottles. And I think that's sort of the sweet spot where you're right, a lot of businesses sell that size. And it's a cheaper product for them to buy, and they can make more money off of it. There is talk that they could switch to aluminum cans, or like an aluminum can, aluminum bottle. There's virtue in that, but that sort of seems a part where they just seem to get a little bit over their skis a bit. They're doing a survey of Needham businesses, and right now I think 8 or 9 businesses have replied. They want to get more, so we just sort of left it open to, okay, go get some more results. We'll talk, and I want to hear what those results are. But I think everything else I'm sympathetic to, but the 1 liter bottle, I'm sensitive to it. That might just be a little bit too much.
Josh, what do you think? Should town meeting include water bottles as part of its the ban?
So I've heard from Charles River Chamber, who's not very excited about that. I've also know that, like Kevin said, the proponents of the article are doing their own survey among business, which I'm eager to look at, see the results. But right now, I know that plastic water bottles are not great to use for the environment. Sometimes it's the only option that people have if they didn't bring their own water and they have to buy something. For shops to have to stock an aluminum can of still water, that's much less common. Like you've seen aluminum cans of sparkling water of seltzer, but to be able to stock that and make sure that businesses aren't incurring additional cost, I think that may be difficult to do right now. So I don't want to make it difficult in that sense. So right now I agree with Kevin. The rest of the article I'm happy to support, but not the plastic water bottle ban right now.
Right. Tina, your turn.
I appreciate the work that the folks are doing on this, because I think, environmental issues are a big deal. If you do a quick and sort of down and dirty look at cost, a fluid ounce of Poland Spring on Amazon is about 4 cents, and Liquid Death, which is the sort of one of the more popular aluminum cans,
Will be named.
yeah, that jumps to 8 cents a fluid ounce. So that is double. And when you talk about the volume, particularly for some of these restaurants and convenience stores, that's a major, major cost. And, do we pass that on to our customers? I made the conscious decision to go green with our e-commerce packaging a couple of years ago. That tripled my packaging costs. That's something I budgeted for. And I have the cash flow for that, but not all businesses prioritize environmental things, and they don't have the money to support that. So unless there is an alternative that is cost effective, I don't think that should be included in the ban.
Thank you all for that. And just to say that the problem with aluminum cans for a lot of restaurants is that the supply chain is just not there. Coke and Pepsi don't want to put water in cans if they can put Coca-Cola in cans. And so in the summer, it can be hard to get the water cans that you need to. And the aseptic boxes are not recyclable at all. So there's a problem there, but we move on. So last thing I want to ask you before we get into our closing comments, actually 2 more things, hopefully. The flooding that we've seen has devastated the town over the past year from a number of storms. Help us understand what needs to be done there and what you would push for if you were on the select board to make sure that happens. And Josh, I'll go with you first.
Absolutely. So there are long-term fixes, there are short-term fixes. The long-term fixes is that capacity, increasing the capacity of our storm drain system. We don't. Basically, the storms are getting more frequent and more intense, and our capacity is not sufficient to handle all of the stormwater runoff. In order to replace those storm drains, the Department of Public Works director estimates is about $1,000 per foot of pipe. So it's very expensive. And some of the severest flooding in town was near the interior, about a mile away as the crow flies from the Charles River. So that's a long distance. That's a big cost. We can start saving for those costs by putting money in our capital improvement fund, but that's a large cost and probably a long time to fix entirely. The shorter term things is we can look at our policies to make sure that paved areas are replaced with green space. Right now in our zoning, lot coverage does not count paved areas at all. It's only the footprint of a building. And so if we are able to preserve more green space, that allows water to go directly into the ground and bypass our stormwater system. So that alleviates some of the congestion in the stormwater.
I need to catch up there because we're running out of time. Kevin, your turn, but we need to keep it short.
Sure.
We're doing 2 things. One is there's a study or a hydrology study for the town, and that's going to be $250,000. We're voting on Article 31 at town meeting, and that will give us a full assessment of how Needham drains and then where the pinch points are. And full implementation might be, like you're right, 30 years. The other one, we're looking at we have to redo the culverts about $2.25 million, I'm sorry, $250,000 to fix the culvert. They need to be, if they're actually in horrible shape, we have to fix them. And that has to be funded as well. And then we want to do a stormwater bylaw working group. We're looking to tweak the bylaw. Given climate change, the bylaw is silent on too many things that allows builders to build houses that are effectively built to flood. And there's just no awareness of what, I mean, there's insane things. There are people who have their lot in the house below the street drain, and they're surprised when their backyard floods and it goes into the basement. And I
Right,
feel very bad.
I'm gonna stop you there, Kevin. Tina?
So agree with both of them. Two sort of additional comments. As Kevin mentioned, climate change. So I think we need to work with Climate Action Planning and Green Needham to sort of figure out the ways that we can reduce our footprint and sort of try to mitigate some of these things going forward, particularly micro events that happen, such as what happened last August. And another sort of related to what Kevin was saying, work with homeowners to, sort of educate, what does your land look like? What, what's capable, what's possible, what's not possible. And if you decide to make sort of these decisions on building, what are the potential ramifications of that?
Great. Thank you all very much. So I'm going to go to the closing statements. I did want to ask you each one question before that. As I mentioned you before the event, and I wasn't sure I was going to say it with everybody listening, but I will. I get the impression that you actually all kind of like each other, or you're really good at pretending that you like each other. And I want to compliment you all for that. You seem to be pretty cordial and get along with each other. And I think it's a tough choice for voters. So I presume you're all going to vote for yourself, but does anyone else want to tell me, anyone here want to tell me who else they're going to vote for on April 9th?
Justin McCullen for planning, sure.
What'd you say?
Justin McCullen for planning. He's running unopposed.
I didn't expect anyone to answer it, but you could have. So thank you all very much. We are going to go with closing statements. And if I'm not mistaken, we started with Kevin. So we'll go with Josh and then Tina and then Kevin in that order. Josh, you have 90 seconds to tell us why voters should vote for you in the next election.
Sure. Well, thank you, Greg. I have a lot of experience in town. I know how the town works from my 13 years as a town meeting member and my 6 years as a finance committee member. Every budget cycle, we look through every line of the budget and understand where the money is being spent and where the money comes from. About 80% of the revenues in town come from property taxes. And that is split between residences and the commercial base. The commercial base in Needham pays a higher share of property taxes than residences. In other words, we shift the property taxes where the commercial pays a higher rate than the residences, I should say. And that's something that's has helped the town in the past pay for some of the infrastructure that we have. But I know that it's a lot to ask of our businesses. We want to make sure that we work with businesses to make sure that they feel that they're being supported as well, because it's a very symbiotic relationship between the residences, the businesses, between the businesses and the town. It's all an ecosystem, like economy, ecosystem, they have the same root. We need to make sure that we're all working together. And when residences and businesses do work together, it's fantastic. It means you have people, going to shops, going downtown, being active in the economy, and you have people valuing the businesses. That's what I want. I want this ecosystem of business and residences all together. So thank you
very much, Josh. Tina.
Thank you again, Greg, for this forum. It was fantastic. As a small business owner, I moved my store out of Needham in 2022 because it wasn't thriving in its location on Great Plain Avenue. I understand the needs and challenges of our business owners in town and want to engage more fully with the business community to promote growth. These businesses are the engine of Needham's local economy, and we need to explore ways not only to attract, but to retain a diverse mix of business in town. Strategies such as the Great Plain Avenue Revitalization Project, breaking down barriers for those who want to initiate business in our town, and marketing Needham as a retail and dining destination to our residents and neighboring communities will help offset these challenges our businesses are currently facing. As we need to look at the business picture from a holistic approach, we also need to consider housing. Our housing plan should encourage more mixed use, apartment and multifamily development, and increasing walkability, a vibrant streetscape and access to services and public transportation. I believe in serving the community of which I am part, and I'm excited to take this next step. I'm running because I know representation matters. This can propel diversity within any community, particularly within the small business community. And I believe that as a small business owner, I bring a unique perspective when looking at our downtown revitalization. I value collaboration and fiscally responsible progress, and I know what it takes to effectively work for and within this community. This campaign is not about me, but it's about us and how we can work together. So I hope you will vote for me on April 9th.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
And Kevin, you're up.
Great. And thank you, Greg, and thank you to the Chamber for hosting this, and thank you for all the participants. I feel like I'm in a very lucky position. I'm very proud of all the accomplishments the Select Board has accomplished in the last 2 years. We've gotten a lot done, and it's nice to run on a successful record. The other thing, though, I'm very proud of is how we accomplished it. And as I said before, as I said often, civil discourse, openness, transparency, and level-headedness and trustworthiness are things I live by. That's how we approach our problems, and that's how we try to solve them. And I can tell you from 2 years in the Select Board, that's what also makes for good government. So with the spring election upon us, I'm eager to serve another term. I'm ready to promote good government and good business in town, and I want to ensure that the town works for all of us. And so I'm excited, and I hope you all too. Thank you very much, and please vote on April 9th. Thank you.
Thank you to the three of you very much, and thanks to everybody who watching now or will watch in video. A reminder that the election is on the 9th, and you should vote before then or then. A reminder to follow the Needham Observer, Needham Local, to learn more about these candidates and learn more about the election issues. I think that's really very important. And I want to again thank each of you for being here, but also for running, because it's a lot to ask and to public service. So we're grateful to that. So thank you, everyone, and thanks to Grassi for supporting our series today, our candidates interviews. Have a good one, everybody.
Thank you, Greg.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks.